Upon opening my eyes, I found myself reborn on the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. The true daughter had arrived to claim her familial ties, and I promptly gathered my belongings to return to the home of my biological father. My adoptive mother was thrown into a frenzy, my adoptive father was filled with regret, and my betrothed persistently sought me out, entangled in his own emotions. I, Lin Miao Miao, am the daughter of the ministerial family. On this significant day, the midwife who had assisted in my birth brought Su Ruyan to the ministerial residence to acknowledge her lineage. In my previous life, on the day of recognition, I fought desperately to prevent Su Ruyan from crossing the threshold of the ministerial estate, yet this very action incited disdain from my adoptive parents. After all, how could they simply disregard the daughter they had raised for 16 years? To appease me, the minister allowed me to remain in the household, while Su Ruyan seamlessly transitioned into the role of the second young lady of the family. My biological parents were merchants, and in my past existence, I refused to acknowledge them. I viewed merchants as the lowest of the low, as the esteemed daughter of a minister. How could I claim them as my parents without losing face? In my previous life, when Su Ruyan returned to the ministerial estate, both the lady of the house and the minister lavished her with affection. In an effort to compensate for her situation, they provided her with the finest garments and ultimately transferred my engagement to her. The crown prince, who had grown up alongside me as a childhood companion, was bound to me by a betrothal, with our marriage anticipated following this ceremony. Now that the true daughter had returned, she sought to usurp the love that was rightfully mine, even attempting to claim my childhood confidant, the crown prince. In public, she presented herself as a gentle and docile creature, yet behind closed doors, she was ever provocative, declaring her intent to reclaim everything she believed belonged to her. Desperate for even a modicum of my mother's compassion and the crown prince's affection, I resorted to unscrupulous means to contend with her. Ultimately, I succumbed to the weight of blood ties and the allure of personal gain. Su Ruyan, after all, was the true daughter of the ministerial family. The minister favored her, loved her, and the lady of the house defended her at every turn, even going so far as to relinquish my possessions in her favor. In pursuit of the minister's support, the crown prince, without a moment's hesitation, agreed to shift his betrothal to her. To maintain her standing, the minister expelled me from the household, severing all ties. The crown prince, in a bid for the minister's backing, publicly humiliated me, hurling insults and vowing to have no further dealings with me. My biological parents welcomed me back home, urging me to forget the past and start anew, yet I felt their favoritism toward Su Ruyan. What did it matter what man was involved? What man could be trusted? In my previous life, I comprehended none of this. I merely perceived that everyone favored her. Even my biological brother supported her in every endeavor, unwilling to acknowledge my existence in public. In my fury, I erupted on the day of their wedding, confronting the crown prince and questioning whether our once sacred vows were merely contingent upon status. In the heat of the moment, I voiced every thought, every grievance, as if I were a shrew, laying bare my frustrations before all. I was slapped in the face, publicly humiliated, and ultimately struck down by the crown prince's guards. Throughout this ordeal, not a single person I had longed for, a father or mother, came forth to intervene. As I lay dying, regret washed over me. What did it matter if one's lineage was noble or if vows were sworn, when personal happiness was paramount? Mother, I lamented my past defiance. I was wrong. If I could relive those moments, I would ensure you never felt sorrow. Perhaps it was my sincere heart, or perhaps my unwillingness to accept fate, that moved the heavens, for I was granted a second chance at life. In this second chance at life, I have resolved not to contest nor to engage in the agonizing affairs of love any longer. As I opened my eyes, my maid, Xiaotsue, urged me to rise, reminding me not to linger in bed today, for it is the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. Her face was alight with joy and pride. I was grateful that everything had been reset, and she was still by my side. In my previous life, she had been sold to a brothel by Su Ruyan to protect me, ultimately meeting a tragic end filled with resentment. Tears welled in my eyes as I embraced her petite frame, my voice trembling as I sobbed softly. Miss, on such a joyous occasion, how can you cry? You should smile. Xiaotsue playfully pushed me away, pinching my cheeks and teasing me. The ceremony today signified that the midwife would soon bring Su Ruyan to our door to acknowledge her kinship. In light of this, I decided to dedicate this ceremony to her. Xiaotsue, there's no need for you to fuss. Just help me pack a few essential garments. I shan't take any valuables. Why not? She inquired. I gently ruffled her hair and reassured her, just do as I say. If you wish to accompany me, you must pack lightly as well. The lady of the house was bustling about, entirely oblivious to my peculiar behavior. As noon approached, the midwife indeed arrived, accompanied by Su Ruyan, clutching the jade pendant that had been lost years ago. After some inquiries, the lord and lady confirmed that Su Ruyan was their biological daughter, while I, Lin Miao Miao, was the one mistakenly taken in. They deliberated on how to address this situation, and I, with my bundle slung over my shoulder, stepped forward to bid them farewell. Father, Mother, allow me to call you that one last time. For 16 years of nurturing, I am at a loss to repay you. However, your daughter has just lost her own, and she wishes to return to their side to serve them. Everyone was taken aback. The true daughter had arrived, and I was leaving with my bundle. Those unaware might think the residents had treated me poorly. Otherwise, why would I be so eager to depart? The lady of the house panicked, having raised her daughter for 16 years, suddenly faced with the prospect of losing her. Meow meow. Are you afraid that mother won't love you anymore? You are my precious darling. How could I not cherish you? Please don't leave. The Lord also implored. No matter who joins our family, you will always be our precious daughter. Your place in my heart remains unchanged. Stay and keep your mother company. Su Ruyan clenched her fists tightly, her nails nearly piercing her flesh, her resentful gaze fixated upon me. I suddenly felt the weight of her fiery stare. And I knew it was Su Ruyan. I pretended to be oblivious. In my past life, it was my reluctance to part with the glory of the residence and the prince that led to my tragic demise. In this rebirth, I desired nothing but to live freely and fully. I bowed to the lord and lady, resolutely departing the residence with Xiaotsue. As I stepped through the grand gates, I felt liberated. The sky was blue, the clouds white, and the lively streets outside brimmed with joy and delight. From now on, I would be the daughter of a merchant, caring for my appearance without the need to curry favor with anyone or to consider the lord's reputation at the expense of my own dignity. My parents were merchants, owners of a modest tea house by the west gate of the city. With Xiaotsue in tow, I dashed towards my parents' home. Though it was but a fraction of the size of the residence, it radiated warmth. My mother, Su Zhuang, was a learned woman, and all of Su Ruyan's education had come from her. In my previous life, I had scorned this family, deeming them merchants who tarnished the dignity of my noble upbringing. Yet now, as I entered their humble abode for the first time, I found my parents' eyes filled with tears, and I collapsed into my mother's embrace, weeping profusely. If only I had been more understanding in my past life, my mother would not have suffered in silence, my father would not have succumbed to despair, and my brother would not have fallen prey to misfortune. After a long while, I released my mother, wiping her tears away. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "I am called Meow Meow," I replied. "Oh, Meow Meow, what a lovely name," she responded. At that moment, my father interjected. "Our Meow Meow not only has a beautiful name, but is also a stunning young lady, just like her mother in her youth." My mother, like a playful girl, lightly swatted my father and blushed a charming shade of crimson. Their interaction revealed the depth of their affection. My father cherished my mother, and their bond was evident. Such warmth was absent in the residence, where I had been taught from a young age to adhere strictly to the patriarchal norms, absorbing the teachings of female propriety and obedience. In stark contrast, my parents supported one another, sharing responsibilities in a life of mutual collaboration. This was the existence I yearned for. After conversing with my parents for a short while, a handsome, dark-complexioned young man hurried in. I recognized him. He was my elder brother, who had inherited my father's business and ventured out daily to expand it. His ambitions exceeded my father's. He sought to delve into tea, silk, and much more. Meanwhile, my father was content to maintain the tea house by the western gate, satisfied with a humble livelihood without the desire for extravagant wealth. My brother Suja announced before he even arrived, "Father, Mother, I have purchased new furniture and items for the girls' room. We shall tidy up the old quarters where grandmother used to stay for when my sister returns." Upon uttering this, he finally noticed me sitting beside our mother. "Are you my sister?" he exclaimed, astonished. He reached out to take my hand, then hesitated, retracting it to wipe it clean before extending it once more. In the residence, I had never been permitted to casually touch a man's hand, not even that of my former brother. Here, however, we were merely common folk, free from the constraints of etiquette. Boldly, I stepped forward and embraced my brother, trembling as I called out, "Brother." Suju was taken aback by my boldness. He pulled me to sit beside our mother, inquiring, "Sister, would you prefer to stay in Rian's room, or should we prepare a new one for you? If you choose hers, I will replace all her belongings for you." Such a devoted brother. Why had I not noticed this in my previous life? Had I been too obstinate? Clearing my throat, I replied, "Brother, I do not wish for her room. I would like my own." "Very well, wait here. I shall arrange it immediately," he declared, nonchalantly departing. In my past life, I had been too stubborn to appreciate those around me. As time passed, I grew closer to my parents. My brother busied himself in the backyard for the entire afternoon, clearing out Su Ruyan's, now Lin Ruyan's room, discarding all her possessions. Before dinner, my brother took me to see the room he had prepared for me. It was lovely. Although the furnishings might not be as exquisite as those in the residence, they were thoughtfully chosen by him. I was overjoyed. With such a brother, what more could I desire? Thus, days passed by, and during my leisure, my mother took me shopping, purchasing everything exquisite and expensive for me. My brother, too, had recently traveled south and brought me many trinkets, including cosmetics I had never seen before, as well as exquisite embroidery. Yet my most cherished possession was the sandalwood hairpin my brother gifted me. Imbued with a delicate fragrance and crafted with exquisite artistry, unmistakably the work of a master. He remarked that my discerning I had chosen the finest treasure. Time flew, and half a month later, a carriage from the residence unexpectedly arrived at our doorstep. The esteemed minister and his lady have arrived, and old Wang is unloading a plethora of items from the carriage, while my mother graciously declines their offerings. In my past life, they witnessed my demise without so much as a flicker of remorse. Now they have come here again. What could their true intentions be? With a heart laden with unease, I follow my mother, observing the theatrical performance put on by the minister and his wife. The minister, noticing my obedient presence, inquires with concern, "Meow meow. Are you adapting well to your stay here?" I nod and respond, "Minister, I have grown accustomed to my residence. I apologize for causing you both concern." Each word I utter distances me from them. In times gone by, I would have wept and begged to return, but now, having traversed the thresholds of life and death, what is this trivial suffering in comparison? Moreover, I am surrounded by parents who love and cherish me. The minister's wife appeared momentarily taken aback, her demeanor betraying a hint of awkwardness. She timidly beseeches me, "Meow meow, your mother misses you dearly. Would you consider returning with her? You, a daughter of the minister's house, have sadly fallen to the status of a merchant's daughter. Your mother is aware of your grievances and has come today to bring you home." The minister echoed her sentiments, affirming, "Indeed, meow meow, your mother longs for you, unable to eat or sleep well in your absence." I felt a pang of emotion. These are the parents I have called my own for 16 years. How could I bear to part with them? Yet, I cannot return. I, too, have parents now, and I must remain by their side to fulfill my filial duties. I recall that in my previous life, their initial reluctance to part was palpable. So why did they become so heartless later on? Everything changed after Su Rian entered our lives. As I gazed at the increasingly gaunt visage of the minister's wife, I sank to my knees before them, bowing deeply 3 times. With solemnity, I declared, "Minister, my lady, I shall forever remember the kindness you bestowed upon me over the past 16 years. Should there come a time when I can be of assistance, Meow Meow will do her utmost." My resolve was unmistakable. I refused to return, to step foot in that household again, unwilling to repeat the mistakes of the past. I believed that after bidding farewell to the minister and his wife, all would be clarified, and life would resume its rightful course. Alas, I was mistaken. I underestimated the avarice of human nature, and even more so, the machinations of Su Rian. My engagement to the crown prince was, in part, a consequence of the prime minister's influence, but equally due to my own illustrious reputation in the capital. I possessed beauty and was well-versed in the arts, excelling in music, chess, literature, and painting. At the tender age of 9, I had captivated the empress at a palace banquet, and over the years, I had been groomed in the empress's grace. Now, to suddenly present a merchant's daughter as a substitute, the crown prince was understandably unwilling to accept this change. He could not simply relinquish his fiancée for a merchant's offspring. The prime minister's household now faced the harsh reality of the crown prince's imminent withdrawal from the engagement. And panic ensued. Both the minister and his wife were distraught, and their son, Lin Gong, was utterly flustered. In their desperation to salvage the betrothal, the Prime Minister and his wife personally sought me out, only to be met with my refusal. In my previous life, perhaps my outcries had been too vehement, allowing Su Ruyan to exploit the situation, leading to the Crown Prince's disdain for me and the Empress's doubts regarding my character. This time, I chose to refrain from contention. Yet they sought to ensnare me tightly within their grasp. But I would not acquiesce. One day, while assisting my father at the tea-house, I inadvertently encountered the heir of the Jingyuan Marquis and the heir of the minister's household, who were conversing casually with the second son of the general's estate. The heir of the minister's household, Xu Jinghua, remarked, "Have you heard? The crown prince knelt before the throne for 2 days and nights to force the emperor to issue a decree to annul the engagement." The general's second son, Guayu, retorted, "After all, they are all daughters of the prime minister's household. Does it truly matter whom he marries?" "Not at all," Xu Jinghua countered. "The former Lin Miao was a paragon of noble young ladies in the capital. This new version, I would not marry either." Guayu inquired, "Why not?" Xu Jinghua replied, "This current daughter of the prime minister's household is merely a merchant's daughter. To make matters worse, she offended the empress during her recent audience, displaying a complete lack of understanding of basic etiquette, boasting only of her status. I also heard that she, relying on her position as the minister's daughter, has had several maids executed for daring to contradict her." Guayu added, "Indeed, those of merchant origins often see only wealth and profit, lacking any true sense of refinement." From the adjacent room, I listened to their exchanges with a mix of disdain and acknowledgement of their harsh truths. "My mother is well-educated and genteel. Her family is not of merchant stock, yet she is a secondary daughter, having married my father out of necessity due to her family's decline." I recalled my mother mentioning that Su Ruyan was not as domineering before her return to the minister's household. Perhaps she had taken advantage of the minister and his wife's guilt. Regaining my composure, I stepped outside, only to encounter the heir of the Jingyuan Marquis, Luo Shuyan. "What a coincidence, Shuyan Ji," I greeted awkwardly. Once, aside from the crown prince, he was one of the few I conversed with. We had grown up together. The crown prince was rather formal and adhered strictly to decorum, while Luo Shuyan was carefree and acted on whim. In those years, I had to present myself as dignified and composed to prepare for the role of a suitable crown princess. Yet, in my heart, I yearned to live as Luo Shuyan did, galloping across the western winds, enjoying spring outings, splashing in summer waters, climbing trees to gather fruit in autumn, and engaging in snowball fights in winter. Only in his presence could I be my true self, free from the constraints of decorum. Seeing me at the tea-house, Luo Shuyan appeared slightly surprised, but upon recalling my parents' merchant status, he seemed to find it entirely reasonable. "Miao Miao, is this your father's establishment?" he inquired. "You are quite astute." "Shuyan Ji, you guessed correctly," I replied with a smile. Luo Shuyan smiled gently and asked, "Miao Miao, do you not intend to invite me for a cup of tea?" "Of course, since Shuyan Ji has requested, how could I deny your wish?" I responded cheerfully. I descended the stairs to instruct the waiter to brew a pot of pre-rain longing tea and bring it to the private room on the second floor. Along with the tea, I also procured some pastries, for overindulgence in green tea can upset the stomach. Luo Shuyan reclined as he always did, gazing out at the solitary geese flying south. Following his gaze, I recited, "Who sends the brocade letter in the clouds? When the geese return, the moon fills the western tower." "Shuyan Ji, who occupies your thoughts?" I inquired. He turned to me, smiling, and said, "Miao Miao, do you think a person like me, who is unorthodox and carefree, could attract the attention of any young lady?" Pouring him a cup of tea, I teased, "Is Shuyan Ji feeling insecure? Where has your confidence gone? The former you was extraordinary, beyond measure." No sooner had I spoken than he sputtered out the tea he had just sipped, looking at me with an expression of puzzlement and a hint of melancholy. After a long pause, he finally spoke, "Miao Miao, your engagement to the crown prince has been annulled. Have you contemplated your future?" "Not at all," I replied firmly. "I believe I can live a fulfilling life on my own, without children or a husband." A flicker of unrecognizable emotion sparked in his eyes. I had never seen him like this before, and a wave of concern washed over me, causing a dull ache in my chest. Perhaps it was the bond we had forged since childhood, as I had never experienced such feelings in my past life. Luo Shuyan gazed at me for a long time before replying, "Miao Miao, If you ever wish to marry and find no suitable candidates, would you consider me? Did he harbor feelings for me, or was he merely seeking companionship? I dismissed his words as madness. How could he have such thoughts after all these years of friendship? Why had he never expressed this before? In a moment of impulsiveness, I responded with an enthusiastic good, and panic washed over me. Had I truly lost my senses? Luo Xuan laughed, his smile radiant, brightening the very sun in the sky and softening the chilly breeze around us. Deep within me, a sense of joy blossomed. At the very least, this person could accompany me through the vast landscapes of life. A woman studies not merely to witness the grandeur of mountains and the vastness of seas, but to escape the confines of a cage-like courtyard and to avoid languishing through a wasted existence. I remain uncertain about what the future holds. Yet if I must choose a single individual, it would undoubtedly be him, perhaps the wisest decision I could make. As I reclined in bed that evening, memories of my earlier conversation with Brother Xuyen flooded my mind, conjuring images of our past that involuntarily curled my lips into a smile. It might have been the news of my meeting with Brother Xuyen that prompted the Crown Prince to personally seek out my family. Meow meow. Have you been well during this time? I have missed you dearly. How repulsive. Why, you ask? In my previous life, he had commanded his guards to end my life. In that past existence, Su Rian often lamented before him, claiming I had bullied her along with other noble ladies in the capital. She shed a few tears, cried on several occasions, and the Crown Prince believed her. Without discerning the truth, he criticized, insulted, and wronged me. Was it merely because I seized what Su Rian ought to have possessed? No one comprehends the sacrifices I made for the position of Crown Princess. While others indulged in revelry, I devoted myself to practicing the piano and honing my calligraphy. During joyous festivals, I toiled to learn domestic skills, braving the biting cold without faltering for a single day. The fruits of my arduous labor were mistaken by outsiders as something I was born with, while the Crown Prince perceived them as his benevolence. The arrival of Su Rian, who claimed what should have been hers, was returned, and I relinquished what did not belong to her. Yet, he still chose to believe her fabrications. The more I struggled, the more I felt deprived. Everything I had gained and lost ultimately vanished, costing me my very life. I afforded him no pleasantries, responding coolly, "Your Highness, I am doing quite well, so there is no need for concern." I rejected his advances, and my demeanor shifted. The Crown Prince grew anxious, urgently inquiring whether I was indeed unhappy. "I have been preoccupied with state affairs and unable to visit you. Now that I am here, if you are willing, I can implore Father to issue a decree for our immediate wedding, and you shall still be my Crown Princess." I scoffed, "Your Highness. What emperor would desire such a powerless and unconnected Crown Princess? Can you not see the reality?" No, he was astute in the art of self-interest. His words likely stemmed from the fact that the Prime Minister is my adoptive father. Indeed, if I were to marry the Crown Prince, the Prime Minister would also benefit. It was a mutually advantageous arrangement. How could I have overlooked such a truth? Thus, I resolutely declined, "Your Highness, please choose your words wisely. How could a mere merchant's daughter be worthy of one as exalted as you? I implore you, do not speak so recklessly." Meow meow. Is it that I have not done enough? Please, do not refuse me like this. As he spoke, the Crown Prince approached, grasping my hand tightly. His expression twisted with anger. I was terrified, yearning to break free from his grip. In my struggle, I pushed him with great force, nearly toppling him to the ground. He stumbled backward, barely maintaining his balance. Perhaps he realized his actions were inappropriate and that I was displeased, or perhaps his patience had worn thin, rendering him no longer willing to grovel. In a fit of rage, he departed, leaving behind a threat that he would return to seek me out. Having survived this ordeal, I remained engulfed in fear, neglecting to pay heed to his words, dismissing them as mere outbursts. Why had I never witnessed his volatile side before? Was I so compliant, akin to a meek lamb, never daring to oppose him? Now, having defied his wishes, he refused to relent? I shook my head, casting aside such thoughts, and composed myself before making my way to the tea-house. After our last encounter at the tea-house, where Luo Xuan had seen me, he returned the following day. This time, I found him in the company of the same trio. In their youth, they were all taught by the same tutor, and now they had formed an unbreakable bond. I chose not to eavesdrop from the neighboring room, but rather sat openly with them, listening to their discussions about recent events in the capital. Naturally, The most talked about topic was the love triangle involving Su Rian, the crown prince, and myself. The conversation revolved around Su Rian's various attempts to win the crown prince's affection, tales I had heard numerous times in my past life, rendering me uninterested now. Suddenly, Chu Jinghua brought up the Double Ninth Festival, a time when the palace hosted a banquet for officials and their younger kin. I recalled that during the last Double Ninth Festival banquet, a significant incident occurred, one that had caused the crown prince's attitude towards me to shift dramatically. I strained to remember what had transpired, but the memory eluded me. Luo Xuan noticed my distraction and assumed I was saddened by the prospect of missing the palace banquet. Meow meow, that banquet is dull, merely filled with ladies gossiping. It's better not to attend. I, too, have no desire to go. His words influenced Guo Yu and Chu Jinghua, who regarded me with pity, assuming I had yet to recover from the loss of my engagement. I offered a sheepish smile, clarifying that I held no interest in attending the banquet and was simply pondering what amusing events might unfold this year. Luo Xuyan gently ruffled my hair, chuckling. What could possibly happen? It is the same every year, with little variation. His gaze, warm yet unwavering, lingered on me, filled with affection. Suddenly, a dull ache throbbed in my head. I felt as though I had encountered such a tender gaze before, but where? Fleeting images of unfamiliar scenes flickered in my mind. Mums. A sea of chrysanthemums. Su Rian, the crown prince, their expressions hostile as they hurled insults at me. What had they said? I could not recall. I only remembered that after their departure, Luo Xuyan had appeared by my side, assuring me of his belief in me and his promise to provide a better life, urging me to disregard the crown prince. What had transpired in my previous life? Why had their attitudes changed so drastically? What had led to my downfall? What had I forgotten? The images I had just glimpsed were undeniably linked to the Double Ninth Palace banquet. Forget it, since I had chosen to live anew. Why should I be burdened by the past? My recent gesture of clutching my head had drawn the attention of the three, who now regarded me with concern. Luo Xuyan inquired, Meow meow, what is troubling you? I shook my head and replied, it's nothing, just some memories that came to mind. Seeing my expression return to normal relieved them, and they continued their conversation. As evening approached, Chu Jinghua and Guo Yu departed for home, leaving me alone with Luo Xuyan in the private room. He stared at me intently before finally asking, Meow meow, are you still thinking about your engagement with the crown prince? If so, I can assist you. I was taken aback, questioning, why? I did not understand why Luo Xuan would ask such a thing. Since the day I left the prime minister's residence, I had relinquished that engagement. Meow meow. Seeing you in pain earlier made me fear that you might be giving up the crown prince because of your status. Su Rian, she is unworthy of him. Luo Xuan's cold words revealed the suspicions he harbored, his tone stiff as if he had just learned to speak. Indeed, I detected the quiver in his voice, the helplessness and the reluctance. Yet, I felt utterly wronged. Brother Xuan, let me be transparent with you. Since the day I departed from the Prime Minister's residence, all that transpired before is but a wisp of smoke. I shall not look back, nor do I feel any regret. I expressed my innermost thoughts with utmost sincerity. And for reasons unknown, I did not wish to see him in pain or to have him misunderstand me. We gazed silently at one another. Our reflections mirrored in each other's eyes and shared a smile that spoke volumes without the need for words. As we grow older, I shall ride a white horse, taking Meow Meow to explore the mountains and rivers, indulging in the exquisite delicacies of the world. Very well, Brother Xuan, do not renege on your promise. Two tender voices resonate in my ears, reminding me that I had known Brother Xuan even before encountering the Crown Prince. Time passes swiftly. Since the day the Crown Prince departed, he has not troubled me, and during this period, my affairs in the capital have gradually faded into the background. One afternoon, my mother and I were enjoying the cool shade beneath the osmanthus tree in our courtyard, the fragrant blossoms enveloping us in a delightful aroma. Suddenly, Su Rian burst into the backyard, accompanied by her maid. Upon seeing me nestled in my mother's embrace, she mockingly expressed her jealousy. Oh, how touching is the bond between mother and daughter. Indeed, your identity as a merchant's daughter suits you. Your entire family reeks of copper coins. I could hardly believe that she would not only insult me but also demean the very people who had cared for her for 16 long years. Rising to my feet, I retorted, indeed, My family may carry the scent of coins, but during those 16 years spent eating, drinking, and living here, how could you not have noticed? Are you devoid of smell? I. What are you on about? If you find this place so odious, you are welcome to leave and spare us your presence. I shot back without hesitation. She paused to collect herself and weakly replied, I returned to see my mother. Unlike you. My father and mother raised you for 16 years, and you simply walked away without a glance back. You are truly heartless. Yet you dare to call yourself a paragon of noble women in the capital. Pfft. It became apparent that she had come to humiliate me. In my previous life, she would have relished my return to this family, forbidding me from appearing before the Prime Minister and his wife. How curious that, in this new life, everything had shifted. And still, she sought to insult me. I smirked, leisurely countering, Surian, do you wish for me to return to the Siang residence? To continue as their daughter? Are you not afraid I might usurp your favored status? Surian took a step back, her eyes flickering with panic and fear. Indeed, she had reason to be afraid. If I returned, I could not only claim the affection of the Prime Minister and his wife, but also jeopardize her engagement with the Crown Prince. I had deduced correctly. She sought to humiliate me. Hence, should I not collect a bit of interest? I continued, if Miss Rian wishes for me to return and visit the elders, I have no reason to refuse. You are right, they have raised me for 16 years, and such kindness is not easily repaid. Oh, I recall now. The Prime Minister and his wife came looking for me the other day. They said I am their most beloved daughter, and even the Crown Prince came to find me, expressing his intention to seek the Emperor's permission for our marriage. They treat me so well, I should not be so cold-hearted. I ought to return. All that belongs to me. I rambled on, completely disregarding the darkening expression on Surian's face, which had turned as black as a pot's bottom. Infuriated, she could not afford to maintain her dignity and turned on her heel to leave. Throughout our exchange, she had never once regarded my mother, let alone offered her a greeting. My mother sat beside me, observing the verbal sparring with silence. Having raised Surian for 16 years, she would not even extend a courteous inquiry. Even a dog, raised for that long, would surely wag its tail in yearning. Indeed, how could she be compared to a dog? Dogs are the epitome of loyalty. She is even less commendable than that. As for my current life, as long as they do not trouble me, I am content to enjoy my leisure, relishing the stolen moments of tranquility. As the saying goes, what one fears will come to pass. Just 2 days before the Double Ninth Festival, an envoy from the palace delivered an invitation issued by the Empress herself. Why would she extend such an invitation to a mere merchant's daughter like me? My mother had never attended a palace banquet, fearing that her nerves might betray her. So I did not bring her along. This palace banquet was much like those of the past, the only difference being that this year's chrysanthemums bloomed late and were particularly stunning, as if they were competing in beauty, a splendid array of blossoms. The Double Ninth Festival was co-hosted by the Empress and the Emperor, and my seat, as in previous years, was right next to the princess. Furrowing my brow, I suspected that the steward had made an error in seating arrangements. As a merchant's daughter, sitting beside a princess was a grave offense. I discreetly moved to the back and found a corner to sit down. The others were perplexed by my behavior, casting bewildered glances my way. They were all familiar acquaintances, and my actions surely embarrass me. The Emperor has arrived. The Empress has arrived. A sharp cry echoed, prompting everyone to hastily kneel, chanting, Long live the Emperor! Long live the Empress! Rise! A solemn voice resonated from above, commanding attention. Everyone expressed their gratitude and rose, rustling as they settled back into their seats. Once all were seated, the Empress's gaze immediately fell upon my empty chair. She inquired about the eldest daughter of the Siang family. Su Rian promptly stood, unable to conceal her smugness. In response to your majesty, this humble daughter is present. The Empress glanced at her and shook her head, saying, I know you are the Prime Minister's daughter he brought back, but I was asking for Lin Miao Miao. Realizing she was indeed referring to me and understanding the necessity of self-preservation, I rose. In response to your majesty, this commoner is here. My voice, cool and clear, echoed throughout the hall, drawing the attention of the crowd once more. Oh, Miao Miao, why are you sitting back there? Come, take your designated seat. The Empress urged. A designated seat? How could I dare occupy such a position? So many noblewomen and daughters of esteemed families were lined up before me. Was this not akin to placing me on a pyre? Resigned to my fate, I summoned the courage to confront the reality. Your Majesty, this humble daughter is merely a merchant's daughter and cannot disrupt the established order by sitting at the front. Though my voice was soft, it carried through the hall, ensuring my words of disrespect were heard by all. After speaking, I trembled. I, too, was frightened. At my tender age, I knew so little. I merely adhered to the rules, for I valued my life. The Empress's face turned thunderous. It was evident that she was enraged. Was it my fault for being so law-abiding? Was it my fault for disregarding her wishes? To alleviate the tension, the Emperor permitted me to remain in my corner. The banquet commenced, with everyone showcasing their talents: music, chess, poetry, painting, and even the challenging art of shadow puppetry. I found little interest in such performances and discreetly slipped out of the great hall, making my way to the chrysanthemum garden. The plum blossoms bloomed defiantly in the cold. Resilient, the orchids exude a gentle fragrance, embodying the essence of a refined gentleman. Bamboo withstands winter's chill, standing tall and unwavering, and chrysanthemums, enduring the frost, thrive in tranquility, remaining proudly unyielding. Amidst this sea of bright yellow blossoms, I murmured to myself. Just then, a round of cheerful applause erupted behind me. Brother Xuan, how delightful to see you here. I turned to find Luo Xuan, his face alight with joy. It was too stuffy inside, so I stealthily followed you out, he explained, his eyes sparkling with happiness. We strolled through the flower-laden expanse, reminiscing about our childhood. He recounted how we had played house when we were young, and I had promised to be his bride when we grew up. Alas, I had been too young to remember. Why bring this up now? Last time, he had asked me to consider him first. Did he perhaps harbor feelings for me? I gazed at the spirited youth before me, the setting sun casting a rosy glow upon his cheeks. Summoning all my courage, I inquired, Brother Xuan, do you hold a place for me in your heart? Luo Xuan paused momentarily, then turned his head, gently ruffling my hair with an affectionate touch, softly murmuring, meow meow, ever since you agreed to be my bride, my heart has belonged to you. Throughout these years, you have been revolving around the crown prince, and to ensure your happiness, I have chosen to remain silent, feigning indifference. Can love truly disguise itself as apathy? The answer is a resounding no. Reflecting on the past, I followed the crown prince, while Brother Xuan trailed behind me. I mistakenly believed he was close to the crown prince, but that was not the case. He was not familiar with him at all. He was merely orbiting around me. Once, when the eldest daughter of the Minister of Rights made me cry, he retaliated and made her cry too. On another occasion, when the third prince tugged at my hair, he clung to the third prince's hair in retaliation. Upon reconsideration of these past events, it became evident that he harbored feelings for me, and there were signs to trace. In my previous life, I was blind to the truth, forsaking such a wonderful man to pursue a heartless scoundrel. Tears streamed down my face as I threw myself into his embrace, which was broad, warm, and reassuring. A loud thud echoed from behind the rockery, prompting Luo Xuan and me to approach, curious about the commotion. As we drew near, we stumbled upon a bloodied body lying by the rockery, still breathing, with wounds oozing blood. I felt an urge to save the person, but my head throbbed painfully, memories from my past life flooding back. I clutched my chest, burying my head in my knees, biting down on my arm. Luo Xuan held me, soothing my frayed nerves with tender words, assuring me not to be afraid, for he was there. The simplicity of those 3 words, I am here, calmed my anxious heart. My eyes brimmed with tears as I recalled everything. The injured individual before me was the crown prince's wet nurse, who had also met her demise on this very day in my past life. At that time, I was in a foul mood, wandering alone through a sea of flowers, only daring to approach upon hearing a noise. Initially, the wet nurse had been alive, just as she was now. I wanted to call for help, to save her. But she clutched my hair tightly, denying me any chance, even until her last breath. When she died, passing palace attendants reported to the Empress. When the crowd arrived, they found me struggling with the wet nurse's hand, leading them to believe I was her killer. Some palace attendants even slandered me, claiming they witnessed me arguing with the wet nurse and that I had discarded the murder weapon in the grass. When they retrieved the weapon, It was none other than the dagger the Crown Prince had gifted me for protection, and thus I was immediately identified as the culprit. The Crown Prince, without discernment, began to berate and accuse me, even insulting me. I was unwilling to accept this, so I brought up our engagement to silence him, but ultimately, he resolved to break our betrothal and marry Su Rian instead. In my past life, how foolish I was, desperately seeking the Crown Prince's trust while wallowing in sorrow over my lost friend. I had overlooked the palace maid who testified against me. And how had my dagger ended up in the palace? Was I the victim of a malicious setup? Reflecting back, who had incited me to leave the Grand Hall in my previous life? Who had the greatest opportunity to access my dagger? Indeed, I had overlooked such crucial information. Su Rian, why could you not let go even after I had willingly withdrawn? I disregarded the wet nurse's corpse, relying on my memories from my past life to effortlessly locate the dagger. Seeing that no one was around, I tossed the dagger into the river and pulled Luo Xuan away as we fled. With the assassination lacking evidence, the investigation would focus on people. This time, I was eager to see how the Crown Prince would seek vengeance for his wet nurse. After leaving the rockery, Luo Xuan and I sat amidst the sea of flowers, unconcerned about the thoughts of passers-by or who might discover the wet nurse's body. An hour later, patrolling soldiers finally found her, suspecting an assassin and becoming alert. Soon after, the Empress and the Crown Prince, accompanied by a grand entourage, arrived, with Su Rian among them. Upon learning that the deceased was his wet nurse, the Crown Prince was consumed by rage, bellowing at the inner officials to conduct a thorough investigation. His fury seemed disproportionate. After all, it was merely a wet nurse. Why was he so distraught? Perhaps within the depths of this palace, the wet nurse had provided him with a level of care that others could not. After 2 hours of questioning, suspicion fell upon a palace maid named Where. The Empress ordered a search of her person and quarters. Following a chaotic rummage by the guards, they discovered numerous valuable items in Ware's room, including 2 imperial gifts. Ware panicked, afraid to implicate Su Rian, and in her desperation, she pointed her finger at me. In my past life, I had been too concerned about the Crown Prince, allowing myself to be ensnared by their schemes. This time, I would not be so naive. Before I could even begin to defend myself, Luo Xuan stepped in front of me, asserting that he and I had exited the Grand Hall together and had spent the time there enjoying the flowers. Ware became frantic, attempting to slander me further, even dragging in the heir of the Jingyuan Marquis. How dare she? Offending the Marquis could cost her life. She fell to her knees, trembling, stammering that it was the daughter of the Marquis who had instructed her to act, and that the treasures found in her room could prove her innocence. Upon hearing Ware mention Su Rian, the Marquis's wife stepped back in shock. Just moments ago, she had remained composed while Ware pointed at me, but now, her own daughter was the target of accusation, and she faltered. The panic of the Marquis's wife did not escape my notice, and I admit I felt a pang of sadness. Blood ties, after all, hold a weight that affection cannot overcome. The Empress brought forward the imperial gifts for examination, instructing the inner officials to verify the records of their bestowal. It was soon confirmed that these items were indeed granted to the Marquis's residence by the Emperor. Su Rian, seeing her exposure imminent, hastily protested, claiming it was not her, but Lin Miao Miao who had orchestrated the act, asserting that the imperial gifts were given to her by me. Her voice trembled with a hint of desperation, and I knew she was on the verge of collapse. Since she had placed such a heavy burden upon me, how could I not express my gratitude? I spoke slowly and deliberately, explaining to the Empress that when I departed from the Marquis's residence, I had taken only a few personal garments and nothing else. Moreover, I distinctly remembered these 2 items being locked in the storeroom, without the lady's permission. How could I have obtained them? My defense, combined with Luo Xuan's earlier words, garnered the Empress's unwavering trust. She turned sharply to Su Rian, sternly reproaching her for allowing her unworthy daughter to sow chaos within the palace, declaring that such a crime was deserving of punishment. Considering the Prime Minister's years of dedication to the nation, she would first report this matter to the Emperor before making a final decision, ordering Su Rian to be detained for the time being. The guards moved forward to escort Su Rian away, who struggled and threatened that her father would rescue her and that those who had captured her would live to regret it. With a decisive verdict, Su Rian was taken by the imperial guards, and the Prime Minister's wife crawled over to me, grasping my ankle tightly, weeping and pleading. Meow meow. Your relationship with the Crown Prince and the Empress is strong. Could you plead for Su Rian's mercy? Consider it a repayment for the 16 years of nurture from her mother. I contemplated helping her up, believing that matters could be discussed gradually. But she stubbornly refused to rise. The Prime Minister's wife's frantic cries drew the attention of the onlookers, and even the Empress's gaze fell upon me. Indeed, I could appeal to the Empress, but what would be the cost? Just moments ago, I had supported the Empress's stance. Now, if I were to plead for her, would she not demand a steep price? The Empress regarded me coldly, a flicker of barely perceptible disdain glinting in her eyes. I sought to soothe myself, to calm my thoughts, pondering how it was that a newly recognized daughter of a prime minister's household could so easily bribe a maid within the palace. Even if such a feat were possible, why had the patrolling soldiers not discovered it for so long? There was a hidden hand at play. Someone silently orchestrating events. Was it to eliminate me, or to remove the two daughters of the prime minister's household? Before I could react, the prime minister hastened to my side, perhaps too hastily, as beads of sweat glistened upon his brow. As he navigated through the throng, my eyes fell upon his wife, kneeling at my feet, weeping softly. It was a most absurd scenario, my foster mother bowing before her foster daughter. Without inquiring into the circumstances, he gestured for me to come forth. I stood frozen, my feet rooted in place, staring in disbelief at the Prime Minister, who had once showered me with affection, now poised to strike without discernment. Despair enveloped my heart. Just as his large hand was about to descend upon my pale visage, Luo Xuan intervened, pushing him aside and shielding me behind him. Glaring at the Prime Minister with fierce intensity, he threatened, "I respect you as the Prime Minister, not out of fear, but because you have contributed to the court. I honor you for nurturing Meow Meow for 16 years. Should you dare to harm her in the slightest, I will ensure you pay tenfold." Luo Xuyan's words were imbued with an assertiveness that warmed my heart, dispelling the shadows of my earlier despondency. His expression betrayed a fury and a thirst for vengeance that I had never witnessed before. I could scarcely fathom that he would go to such lengths for my sake. The autumn breeze was gentle, the sky high and clear, filled with the lingering fragrance of chrysanthemums and fruits. The sun gradually sank towards the horizon, casting a rosy hue upon the sky. The Prime Minister shook his trembling right hand, casting a furious glance in my direction before turning to flatter the Queen. "Your Majesty, there are peculiarities surrounding this young lady's situation. I implore you to investigate thoroughly and clear her name." Lin, the Prime Minister, stood one step below the Emperor, with his disciples scattered throughout the court. The Emperor required an explanation, and thus the Queen nodded, leading her entourage away from the scene. After the Queen departed, the Princess followed suit, casting a provocative glance my way before she left. The Princess's mother was the Queen, thus every action of hers bore the Queen's tacit approval. But why would the Queen wish to eliminate her? She was merely the daughter of a merchant. The Crown Prince was the Queen's adopted son, and the wet nurse was the closest person to him. To murder the wet nurse was to strike at the Prince's most vulnerable point. Whoever killed her would become his enemy. Yet, what did this have to do with the Queen's machinations against me? I found myself unable to comprehend the motives behind these events. It was Luo Xuyan who escorted me home. Upon my return in the evening, burdened with thoughts, I retreated to my chamber. My brother and mother, concerned for my well-being, engaged Luo Xuan in endless inquiries regarding the palace banquet. Their questions, rather than allaying my fears, only heightened them, as my mother was left trembling at Luo Xuan's account. My brother, well-versed in the ways of the world and acquainted with some scions of noble families, had also heard whispers of my betrothal. Luo Xuan briefly recounted the events, and my brother seemed to grasp the situation's gravity. He had previously interacted with Yang Xiong, the illegitimate son of the Duke, who had mentioned that the Queen intended to send his legitimate sister into the palace as the Crown Princess. Now that my engagement to the Crown Prince had been annulled, and he was unwilling to marry Su Ruyan, the Queen's niece stood a greater chance. However, the Crown Prince adamantly refused to take the Queen's niece as a consort and instead beseeched the Emperor to reinstate my engagement to him, thus incurring the Queen's wrath. Upon hearing this, Luo Xuan understood the intricacies at play, while the truth began to crystallize in my mind. The events of the day, seemingly aimed at my demise, were in fact orchestrated to eliminate both me and Su Ruyan, all while ensuring the crown prince resigned himself to marrying the queen's niece. Such a scheme was astutely devised indeed. The queen was remarkably shrewd. In my past life, I had been ensnared by so many plots. Believing my own recklessness had precipitated my downfall. I now understood that I was merely a pawn in the game of politics. In my previous existence, I could not escape. Now, endowed with knowledge, could I still not find a way out? Luo Xuan, with his affable demeanor, quickly became familiar with my brother, even calling him brother in return. My mother took a liking to him as well, insisting he stay for dinner. Su Ruyen was soon released. The deceased was but a servant. And the emperor cared little, unwilling to offend the prime minister for the sake of a mere maid. In the crown prince's eastern palace, the flickering candlelight cast shadows across a dim study, where the crown prince's eyes brimmed with malice, his face visibly contorted in rage. His dark guards had just reported that the incident concerning his wet nurse was far more complex than it appeared. Over the past few days, Su Ruyen had frequently visited the princess's chambers, and the crown prince had surmised much. His wet nurse had fallen victim to another's hand, and knowing who the murderer was, he could hardly fathom how his father had let her go. It seemed that the prime minister had interceded on his behalf. And perhaps his elder sister had spoken well of her too, otherwise, how could she have been released so easily? Good, ha ha ha. The crown prince laughed maniacally, realizing that this entire scheme had been tacitly approved by his adoptive mother. No wonder she had appeared so composed, as though everything lay within her grasp. Yet, she had miscalculated one aspect. She had not anticipated my alliance with Luo Xuan. After the banquet, I hinted to Luo Xuan that as long as I remained unmarried, trouble would continue to seek me out. Consequently, Luo Xuan persuaded his parents, and soon a proposal was put forth for my hand. According to the decrees of parents and matchmakers, with 3 letters and 6 rights, I became betrothed to my brother Xuan. On the day of our betrothal, I penned a letter to be sent to the prime minister's household. For they were my foster parents, their nurturing surpassing the heavens. Regardless of how they had treated me in my past life, or how they might deceive me now. On this momentous occasion, I felt compelled to express my gratitude. To my astonishment, the crown prince arrived on the day of the betrothal. His intentions unchanged, he spoke of his affections and how much he missed me. Gazing upon his duplicitous visage, I realized he was merely grappling with his own sense of loss, unwilling to accept my departure without a struggle. Such men, at their core, are often trivial. The less I cared for him, the more he valued me. In my previous life, I had held him in the highest regard, yet he had failed to see it. After dismissing him, the Marquis of Jingyuan dispatched gifts and a marriage certificate. Luo Xuan and I inscribed our names upon the document, which was then delivered to the authorities and sealed with a stamp. My marriage was thus settled, the date set for a fortnight hence. My mother busily prepared for the occasion, crafting every piece of attire by hand, even stitching my wedding gown herself. The affair between Luo Xuan and me was now a matter of certainty. Yet, on one fateful morning, a loud knocking resounded at our door. Xiao Cui opened it to reveal a bloodied Granny Li collapsed at our threshold. Granny Li was an elderly woman who had cared for me since childhood, and her appearance, drenched in blood, sent a surge of panic through my heart as I assisted her inside. She regained consciousness half an hour later, grasping my hand, her voice trembling as she uttered, "The Prime Minister, his wife, the young master, and Miss Ruyen, they are all dead." The news was indeed shocking, and I could hardly comprehend why such a calamity had befallen them. In a single night, it seemed, their entire household had been extinguished. I composed myself. As the Prime Minister's adopted daughter, it was my duty to return and attend to their remains, to mourn with them. Although the Lin family had other branches, this was my way of repaying their 16 years of nurturing. Upon arriving at the Prime Minister's residence with Xiao Cui, we found officials from the Ministry of Justice handling the bodies. Not a single soul had survived, save for Granny Li. Su Ruyen, too, had met a tragic end, having suffered humiliation before her death. Who could possess such a ruthless heart? With the turmoil at the Prime Minister's household, my wedding plans were inevitably postponed. Not only did Luo Xuan support my decision to observe mourning for the Prime Minister, but he also stood by my side, sharing in my grief. The truth behind the annihilation of the noble family remains elusive, as the Dali Temple's investigations yield no results. During this period, a palpable anxiety envelopes the capital. Recalling the burdens of my past life, I sense a deviation from the familiar trajectory. An ominous event looms on the horizon. Thus, I conferred with my brother, and we decided it prudent for him to escort our parents to Jiang'an. My brother, Xuyan, the heir of the Jingyuan Marquis, faces an unavoidable fate alongside me. The atmosphere before the impending storm grows eerily tranquil in the capital, as Xuyan and I occupy a tea house, discussing the recent upheavals within the palace. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materializes before us, whispering urgent words into Xuyan's ear before vanishing into thin air. After finishing his tea, Xuyan gravely informs me of a military coup led by the crown prince. Since Xuyan's departure that fateful day, he has left a cadre of shadow guards to protect me while he immerses himself in quelling the unrest. The war rages on for over 10 days and 1 night. The clashing of swords and knives echoes outside our dwelling, sending me into a panic. Mere moments later, a captain move from the crown prince's retinue seizes me, binding my eyes and mouth, plunging me into darkness. I am transported to an eerily silent and somewhat sinister environment. Time becomes a blur until I find myself in a vast square thronged with people under the merciless sun, a blade pressed against my neck. Meow 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 meow. Xian's voice calls out from a distance. I yearn to struggle, but my captor's binds are unyielding. After what feels like an eternity, we ascend a lengthy flight of stairs, finally halting. The blindfold and gag are removed, and the blinding light of day assaults my senses, making me momentarily disoriented. As my eyes adjust, I behold the crown prince. His complexion ashen, wounds marring his body, his garments soaked in blood, and a stubble that has grown long, dark circles betraying his fatigue. Had I not endured the tribulations of my previous existence, I might have felt sorrow for him. Yet now I can only think he deserves this fate. He has taken me captive without revealing his intent. He pulls me close, shouting at Xuan, "If you lay down your arms, I shall release her." I observe Xuan, sword in hand, steadfastly resisting. The numbers on both sides dwindle, with the emperor shielded by the Jingyuan Marquis, the outcome hinging on which side's reinforcements arrive first. Not far from the emperor lies the still body of the empress, perhaps a discarded pawn in this grim game. Caught between his beloved and the weight of state duty, Xuyan's brow furrows in turmoil. How will he choose? The crown prince, sensing Xuyan's silence, presses the blade against my throat, warm blood trickling down my pale neck. A shocking sight. Release her. This is a matter between men. How dare you burden her? Xuyan cries out in desperation. He is on the verge of losing control. Had it not been for the guards restraining him, he might have recklessly charged forward. Tears stream down my face as I witness his uncharacteristic distress. Throughout my memories, he has always exuded confidence, but now he is truly afraid. I too am filled with dread. Should Xuyan relinquish his weapon, the ruthless crown prince would ascend the throne. And what fate awaits the common people? What future would my Xuyan endure? A smile breaks upon my lips as I gaze at the radiant sun above. For the first time, I feel its warmth enveloping me. I look at Xuyan and shout, "Brother Xuyan, having you in this life is enough for me. May you find peace and joy. I love you." My proclamation reverberates through the air, tears glistening in my eyes as I willingly embrace the blade of the crown prince. "No! Meow meow!" Both the crown prince and Xuyan exclaim in unison as I collapse. My vision fades, and my life draws to a close. With the threat eliminated, Xuyan channels his grief into resolve, decisively overcoming the traitors and restoring peace. When I awaken, 3 months have passed, and Xuyan remains steadfastly by my side, sharing tales from various stories to entertain me. My brother does the same, bringing back novelties from his travels, preparing gifts for me even in my unconscious state. The day I awaken coincides with the Lantern Festival, a time of joyous celebration. Xuyan reads to me in my room, and as I listen to his voice, tears cascade down my cheeks. Upon opening my eyes, the first face I see is his. We exchange smiles, a silent acknowledgement of our bond. Fortunately, the crown prince's blade had not pierced deeply. I had merely lost a significant amount of blood. In time, Xuyan and I wed, embarking on journeys together, traversing the land and reveling in the beauty of the world. The tale concludes here. Thank you for listening. Until our next story, farewell.